Hey guys, Ogalbina here, bringing you guys our WBE Week 2 power rankings. Now, if you haven't seen the post-draft PRs or the Week 1 PRs, which are actually up on my co-host ShuckleKing's channel, we're going to be going through, me and Shuckle, obviously, and kind of, ranking the coach based on their playing and stuff like that in a power ranking style format and stuff like that. Do you want to go ahead and say hi, though?
Hey, what's up, everyone? Yeah, I'm glad for all the support for the last video, and hopefully we can keep it up for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so like I said, we're doing it kind of alternating every other week. Last week was up on Shuckle's channel. This week will be up on mine. But if you want to catch week 3, definitely go check out Shuckle's stuff. He will be linked in the description below. He's also doing coach interviews, so any WBE type content, definitely go check out his stuff. He's got a lot of it over there. But yeah, with that being said, do you want to jump into game 1?
Yeah, sure. So this is week 2, and our overall rankings you see on the screen are going to be a combination for me as, like, even if you're like an 0-2 team, but I still really like your team, I'll still probably rank you higher than like a 1-1 record team. But yeah, no, it's starting to favor more how you play the first 2 weeks than your initial draft at this point.
Oh yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I try to keep it somewhat relative to the week prior. Say you rank number 1 because you killed it week 1 and you got smashed week 2. I'm not going to put you at 16 week 2. I'm going to move you down a little bit maybe, but I'm not going to, just like, it's not based on this week you are number 16, this week you are number 1 because you played the best. It's more so like a culmination of how you've played throughout the season thus far for me.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I think there's definitely tiers of coaches pretty close to at this point.
Yeah.
So there might be a lot of movement based in the tiers where the coaches are resided.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so week 1, the first game we're looking at is Patty Trills against James Beck. So again, if you guys know how these power rankings work, you should make sure you check out both sides of the video before you come in, because otherwise we're going to be giving spoilers. So don't watch until you guys see the games already. But okay, spoilers out of the way. So James ended up winning this game. He brought a team of Flame Orb Conch, mixed defensive Umbreon, like a bulky, fast Rotom Wash set, Specs Frostlast, which is nice because Frostlast is like the one mon that's like fast on James's team, I guess, outside of like Reboot. So it's good that they brought speed this week. Rocks Rhyperior and Amoonguss with AV. So a couple things for James. James, you're watching this. Just know that your Frostlast, I was watching your team builder, your Frostlast was a 148, like as your HP stat. And in general in singles, you don't want your HP stat to be divisible by 4, because that means you can only switch into Stealth Rocks 3 times, because it takes away 25% of your HP. So if it's exactly divisible by 4, like 25% times 4 is 100, so you would die after 4 Stealth Rock switch in. If you're not divisible by 4, then it's like, it'll take away like 24.5% of your HP. So you'll have slightly, you'll have like 2% HP when you come in on the 4th Stealth Rock. So that's just a side note to watch out for. In your build, you also brought Inner Focus Umbreon, which seems like a weird bring as well. Synchronize is almost always the preferred ability on Umbreon, unless you're facing like a Jirachi or a Togekiss, and you can prevent Inner Focus. So Synchronize is almost always a better ability on Umbreon in singles, but overall, had a really nice game plan. Bulk, and I felt like he had a pretty decent game plan week 1, just didn't execute it that well, but when you went into team preview and you saw that Specs Frostlast just won the game because there's no Shadow Ball resist outside of like a maybe normal Assault Fist Silvally or something like that. It was good they had like the recognition there and kept it as like your end game win condition. And I felt like you really set yourself up to win the game with the Frostless, even though I think the Frostless only came in 1 point that entire battle. Partially because I went to timer, but I think Frostless would have just cleaned up the game at the very end at that point. And it also seems like you played a little bit slower this week, and you utilized the calculator to make sure all the moves you're going for were correct, and making sure all the switch-ins you had were calculated and made sure they were like the safest way possible to win the game. So I felt like you did a very good job playing this week. Honestly, not really that risky or crazy plays. Made the right switch-ins, like you knew when to sack your Rotom when it was low. to get switches in. You knew that when the Necrozma came in on your Frost Slash, you went into Umbreon right away as it set up a Dragon Dance, and you did a lot of damage with Foul Play. You also knew that you could check on the game to see what Silvally type it was when it came onto the field, which is definitely a plus, unlike some people. So yeah, no, honestly, I was pretty impressed with how you played this week. The prep was a lot better, I felt like, and you brought the speed, and it, like, overall your gameplay really showed this week. So yeah, nothing really flashy, just stuck to the plan, and it worked really well for you.
Oh yeah, for sure. As for Patty's side of things, he obviously unfortunately ended up losing this game. And in my mind, like you said, I think James' team was very good. I think he prepped pretty well. Besides the inner focus on Brown, that made me cringe a little bit when I saw it get toxic and nothing happened back. I was like, no, yeah, not for the fake out Mien Chao. No, but
exactly.
But I think this game was really separated in prep. I don't think Patty was well prepared for a lot of the things on James' team. In all honesty, he didn't really bring sufficient breaking power, in my personal opinion, for James' really fat team. I like the Mien Chao set. I thought it was a cool idea, but I don't think it was utilized to the best of its abilities. Like in that early game when he got the bulk up off, I think after that first hit, wasn't the Amoonguss in range to get to it KO'd if he was calking? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he wasn't. I think the Alcremie set might have been a little sus. This honestly, this analysis part, it's really going to come down to prep, because I don't even think Patty necessarily played super awful. I just think he was just always in such a bad spot because he didn't have correct pivots, he didn't have sufficient breakers, he didn't really have much to really wear down his opponent's team. The Alcremie set was a bit sus in my opinion. Like the Acid Armor 3 attacks. I think a Calm Mind set went crazy this game. I think Calm Mind was very good this game. With just like Mystical Fire, Dazzling Gleam, Calm Mind, Recover. Did really well this game, and it was really annoying for James to switch around. He didn't need the Giga Drain for the Rotom. If you can just boost past it. Rotom. Yeah, if you can just boost past it and hit it hard, like a +1 Dazzling Gleam off Alcremie's pretty good special attack set is gonna hurt really hard in all honesty. And another big thing I noticed on matchup is his Rotom wash counterplay was 0. There was nothing for a Nasty Pot Rotom wash, and I think that's not necessarily a great idea. I know obviously the dual stabs are great, but I think there was better options on his team, especially when you have a Silvally on your roster. You can tailor make a set to beat a mon like that. I think like a Silvally Grass would have been very solid in this matchup. Obviously with Grass plus what did I say? Yeah, I think Silvally Grass would have been a little bit better here. But overall, it was just more so a matter of not really having the sufficient pieces to break. I like the Necro set idea. I thought it was very good in the end game, but he just didn't get enough chip on things. And something I did notice, which was really funny, is the Necro calc. And I'm glad, obviously, that he was calking. But I think it was me and you actually who found this out. In the calc itself, you have to manually change Necro's Photon Geyser. It won't automatically calc it as a physical attack if your physical attack is higher, or a special attack if your special attack is higher. Well, I think it autos to special attack, so it would there. But you have to manually change it from special to physical or something like that in order to see. So that's why he thought that it killed the Rhyperior. Rhyperior is way too fat for that. It's not dropping to many physical hits at all, especially if you're not super invested. So it kind of makes sense. I mean, I've made that mistake before too. It's definitely something. Another thing is I like Golurk and offensive Golurk in this matchup, but I didn't think Band was the bring with how many pivots James had into specific moves. As long as he played correctly and scouted correctly, he should have been fine against that. Maybe like a Life Orb set would have been nice, just because it's faster than a lot of his really slow team. But with Corviknight plus Rotom plus Umbreon plus Amoonguss and things like that, it's a lot harder to lock into a single move, which I think is tough. But yeah, other than that, I think other than, kind of not killing the Amoonguss early on with the Mien Chao, which was a little bit tough, and not really being prepared well, I think he didn't play the worst. It's just also realizing that you do have a timer. Again, it was a big point of contention in a lot of the week 1 games, but it sucks. It's a garbage timer. We kind of got to play the hand we're dealt. You're going to be forced to play a little bit faster on Wi-Fi, and it's going to be a lot more tough against those fatter teams like that James has and stuff like that. But I think it's just kind of an adjustment thing and getting used to the timer and things like that. But yeah, I just think James was immensely more well prepared for this matchup in particular.
Yeah, but it definitely showed. So what do you have? What do you have ranked for Patty? I have him ranked. You have him ranked 16. I have him ranked 15.
Yeah. After a week 1 loss, and this week in particular definitely wasn't the best showing in the world. I kind of had to drop him a little bit farther. I definitely wasn't super impressed.
And I think he's definitely with his team and how he can play. I know he's definitely better than the ranking that he currently is right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think he just has to find his team, like we said in the post-draft power rankings. It lacks a lot of great wall-breaking power, which is something that Necker really appreciates, because if he had a little bit stronger of a team and forced a little bit more damage on that fatter build, that Necro set went crazy in the end game. I love that set. Yeah. I thought it was a really, really good bring. It was just he couldn't get the sufficient damage because of the passivity of his team versus that fatter build.
Yeah, it's just kind of the same spell that happened in week 1 with Patty. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. But next up we have Fruit Berries versus that's a +1. The Baton Rouge Butterfrees versus the Georgia Gummies. This was a very, very interesting game. It was definitely very interesting. I don't think it was very well played on both sides. I won't lie. I think it was there was definitely interesting prep options by both sides. As for what do you call it? The Georgia Gummies. I don't think that he played necessarily super awful. I just don't think he put himself in a great position in the early game, especially. I don't think he knew the mechanic between Ditto and Mons behind a substitute, so he went and tried to copy them on behind a substitute, which obviously isn't the best, unfortunately. And it put him in a really bad spot versus that Zoroark set, which was, at first, I won't lie, I looked at the Zoroark set and I was like, I don't know how I feel about mono knockoff Zoroark versus a class team. But it ended up working out. And it definitely, put the Georgia Gummies on the back foot for sure. He did get super bailed out by a speed tie win because he ended up having to let his Ditto get knocked, which was, again, not very fun either. But he ended up winning it. So that's about a 50-50. You can't fault him too much for that. But other than that, I think that what do you call it? Oh, and another thing is, I noticed with the Clef, I thought an offensive Clef, maybe a Calm Mind Clef, went crazy versus that's a team. I don't think he actually has a Fairy Resist on his roster. No, he doesn't. So one play that really kind of stuck with me is when he T-waved the Zoroark, setting up the sub, when Vatsa doesn't have a Fairy Resist on his team. And you don't even have to be an offensive Clef, but just, you got to learn to attack where your opponent can't defend, and his Fairy Resist was Decidueye. Not the most reliable one, for sure.
Exactly.
I think potentially like a Calm Mindset could have been absolutely nuts in that game. I don't think that had that much counterplay to it besides the Encore Zoroark and catching it on that setup turn or that recover turn, which obviously is pretty decent counterplay if you're aggressive enough and can get in. And he's definitely shown to be a very aggressive player.
Yes.
But other than that, I think it was just more so benefiting off of his opponent. And I don't mean to say that in a very rude way, but close combating Azatu in the end game was a little bit sus. Like I said, it was an attract Dreadnought. Something I noticed too, I'm kind of bleeding into the other coach, which is your job. But one thing I'll touch before I jump into you, because I think there's a lot more to talk about from Vatsa's side than there is from Fruitberry's side. But no rain versus the Georgia Gummies was very interesting in the prep idea for me. I thought Kingdra went nuts in this game, looking at it on matchup.
I did too.
Being his water resist was Golisopod and Vileplume, like Hurricane Draco and just water stabs, went nuts in this game. And Dreadnought had no switches. He identified that early from the beginning. But why that set in particular? That set definitely hurt the attract head smash set. I think if he just brought Rain, set up a Swords Dance, or he didn't even need to set up a Swords Dance. I get the Ditto, obviously, that's not a fun time. But even like maybe a sub 3 attack set, or even just like Life Orb 4 attacks, 3 attacks, rocks, Dreadnought claimed to kill every single time it came in. There was not a single switch into Stone Edge plus like liquidation or anything like that. So it was more so, I think he benefited off the interesting prep and play of his opponent and was able to pick up a dub, and I can't fault him for that. I can't really raise him or drop him in my opinion, though. He hasn't really shown me an improvement in necessarily play. He just more so kind of was the beneficiary of, a very interesting game. But do you want to talk about Vatsa's loss?
Yeah, well, I have Fruit Berries at 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he won the game, but he didn't win the game. I think his opponent lost the game, and then Fruit Berries just on the opposite side of the field in that regards. And I didn't really drop that to too low. I dropped him from 10 to 12 this week. So I think that's played a better game. And honestly, if he won the speed tie with the Zoroark and the Ditto, he just won the game like 5-0. And then if he wins the game 5-0, you got to rank him higher than he was the week before. So it's kind of tough for me to really lower that to too much, though the end game was really, really bad. But no, it was good. Like, that's like identified that like the Dreadnought just went in, just claimed a free kill at the beginning, which was nice. I don't know why like you didn't go for like first impression with the Gliscopod on the Dreadnought, or just switched out. There wasn't really a great switch in for the Dreadnought, to be fair, for Fruit Berries, but that just seemed like a strange lead anyway. But that's it. No, killed the Gliscopod, which was good, and then went into Zoroark on the Xatu when the Xatu came in on the Dreadnought. So that was pretty obvious. I don't think that's a new that Xatu got grass coverage, but it seemed pretty obvious that if a Xatu is coming in on the Dreadnought, that it's going to go for a grass move, the 100% kill, and knowing that it outspeeds. So it seemed weird to get rid of the Zoroark disguise on a Giga Drain and take like 40% for no reason. So like just better understanding and prep of what your opponents could be bringing. It's definitely good to know. Zoroark set seems super strange just based on the damage rolls. I was trying to figure out what the Zoroark spread was. It was like a lot of attack and a lot of defensive investment. So that's whatever. Oh yeah, also Fruit Berries. You want to run max HP, max defense on your Dittos. You just ran like weird EVs. That's like the best set to run on your Ditto. Just max HP, max defense. But that's a side note.
Really, it's only the HP that matters. As long as you have the max HP, you should.
The Ditto is no HP investment, which doesn't make any sense because Ditto already has solo HP. You don't copy your opponent's HP stat. You have to use your base 48 HP stat. So you want to put like max HP in your EVs. That's like the most important for your Ditto. It's getting max HP. The other stuff doesn't really matter. Yeah, just remember that for future weeks. But yeah, no, it was definitely a weird Dreadnought set, weird Zoroark set that, I mean, it ended up working out, and again, could have won if he won that speed tie. But like that's played well. He stalled out like the Trick Room that the Xatu was trying to go for to bring in the Marowak. Like he kept going for a Spirit Shock to make sure the Marowak didn't get a free switch in. He kind of played the Mimikyu a little bit weird. It was Shadow Sneak over Shadow Claw, which I guess is kind of fair if you were expecting like Marowak under Trick Room and had Shadow Sneak to at least like get some chip damage. But like with how fast this team is compared to Fruit Berries, a really slow team, like Shadow Claw just won the game at that point. So that was unfortunate he didn't have Shadow Claw on the team. But yeah, at the very end, going for the no retreat and then going for the close combat on the Xatu, and like I don't think there was any roll where I was gonna die. If it was like adamant, there was a chance he would have killed with the close combat, but like Thatta didn't know that the Xatu was no HP, no defense investment whatsoever. So that was really, really risky. It was definitely the play to just go for the Rock Slide and win the game. So didn't go for the 90% chance to win. That's pretty unfortunate. And if he did, he probably would have been like a rank or two higher than last week. So I can't really fault him, but he's got to go for the win. Don't go for any cute little plays. No. And play on the regular timer too. Don't play on
please,
the 10-minute timer. It's not that hard. Like other coaches have said, it takes them 2-3 minutes to set it up. It's really not that bad.
That hurts. Yeah, that hurts. But yeah.
Yeah. So let's get out of this game. We'll go to the next game in the list, which is Chimpack versus Callum. So. Really, really fun game, and I have Callum up at number 3 in my power rankings. You have Callum at 4, and I don't think this was a ranking that I expected Callum to be at any point this season, just because he's probably the top 3 in like terms of like least experienced like competitive Pokemon players, I would imagine.
At least Rusty wise.
Maybe even like the least experienced, honestly. Out of everyone there, between like singles and doubles players, maybe Fruit Berries too. I don't know what his experience is, but no, Callum's been playing really well with his super aggressive offensive team, which he didn't really bring this week. He brought defensive Serena, Scarf Flygon, which was a cool bring. Iron Defense Vikavolt, a little weird, but cool. Cinderace, which is just fast. Like a defensive-ish Cobalion and a defensive Tentacruel. So he definitely went on a very defensive route against Chimp, which I don't know if it was something I necessarily thought, but it kind of made sense just because Zeraora is so fast. So to have a couple pivots into that is pretty ideal, even though Chimp didn't bring the Zeraora. And I understand why he didn't bring the Zeraora in this game. Serena is a pretty good answer. The Vikavolt's a good answer, even though it could get like Fire Punch. I don't know. You bring Zeraora to every game if you can, ideally. But with Callum, he was aware at the beginning of the game that like a Scarf Crook was going to be brought, like Swords Dance Scissor was probably going to be brought, and they were pretty good assumptions, and they turned out true. It was a Choice Banded Scizor instead of SD, but they functioned pretty similarly, and it was Scarf Crook. So it's good that he recognized that and recognized to keep Serena as healthy as possible throughout this match, because Scarf Crook did pretty well, especially if he was able to knock off the Choice Scarf from the Fly God, like the Crocodile just went in. So it's good that Callum recognized to keep the Serena healthy this whole game. Callum kind of played a little bit weird with the Vikavolt, letting it get toxic and then letting it stay on the field like 6 extra turns and like just get super chipped down. So it didn't really accomplish a whole lot at it there, but outside of that, I thought he did a pretty good job keeping up offensive pressure throughout the game, like sacking the Vikavolt at one point to get the Cinderace, sacked the Cobalion at one point to get Choice Scarf Flygon in, which kept momentum on his side. He sacked the Tentacruel at one point to get the Serena in for free. So just making sure he knew what Pokemon weren't useful at any point and making sure to keep which mons were the most useful still alive. So he played that very well. He was able to knock off the Scizor's Choice Band and then burn it with a Scald. And that was really, really clutch on Callum's part. That like turned the tides and gave him a decent chance to win the game. I felt like he was still a little bit on the back foot. I felt like Chimp had the game for like the longest time until the very, very end of the game. And I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but it was the Choice Scarf Flygon was in and got a couple defense drops on the Gourgeist. So Callum definitely got pretty lucky on that regard. So the Gourgeist couldn't like Toxic and then Synthesis like spam because it was going to die to Crunches from Flygon because of the defense drops. So he switched in the Crocodile, which was a good play to get the Intimidate drop. It's not going to take much from a Crunch. And then Chimp switched out on a double, predicting that the Flygon wasn't going to stay in, clicking Crunch on a Crocodile, which I don't think is a bad play by Chimp at all to make that assumption. But Callum made the hard read, stayed in, and crunched and killed the Sigalith, which Sigalith won the game at that point. Granted, Chimp didn't know it won the game at that point because if the Cinderace was Sucker Punch, then Cinderace still could have brought it back with the combination of Cinderace plus Serena could have won the game, but Chimp didn't know that the Cinderace didn't have Sucker Punch, so it was definitely the right play. I'm sure on Chimp part, like Callum just made a bad play, staying in there. It seemed like unnecessary, but if the Cinderace didn't have Sucker Punch, then that was really only his Callum's play, was to predict one of the 2 Psychic Weak Mons to switch out after the Crook came in initially. So really good aggressive plays by Callum, but that's what we're expecting this whole season, just make super aggressive plays, and it's worked out. First 2 weeks, I think he had one of the top impressive gameplays of the week, so that's why I think Callum definitely deserves to be in the top 4.
Oh yeah, he's definitely really surprised me this season. I was excited to watch his team just because of, like you said, how offensive and balls to the walls the team is, and he's been playing in that way, which has been pretty exciting to watch. It's cool to see. I know me personally, when I draft more hyper offensive teams, I end up falling in trying to build balanced builds, and it's never a good time.
Yeah.
But even with a more bulkier build than his week 1 game, he was definitely, very, very aggressive in this game. And no Grimmsnarl again, which is crazy, especially
I know,
especially
crazy.
versus a Sigalith team. I would have been really scared of a Sigalith without the what do you call it, Grimmsnarl there. But on the Chimpack side of the things, I know you said kind of there, and I agree that there are definitely reasons for no Zera in that game. But personally, I feel like against a really more frail offensive type team, you want that Zera to outspeed and Revenge to be really strong in this game. I thought potentially there were still great sets of this game that could have been brought. I know you said like the Serena checked it, things like that, but maybe like a bulk up Shuckleking set could have went crazy with like like Blaze Kick. Eventually, if you play aggressive enough and you get the hazards up like you're trying to do with Chimp's team, you can break through that more bulky defensive core to check it, being the Vikavolt plus Serena. Like it's definitely 100% possible, especially when he was forcing Toxics on things with the core guys and things like that. I think the Scarf Sigilif was a great endgame idea, though. I thought it was great versus the team, especially when you saw no Grimstorm. Like, there was not one single psychologist on that team. So that was definitely really, really clean. I just think that there were just certain instances where Chimp could have maybe positioned himself a little bit better. He took a little bit of unnecessary chip on a lot of mons, which really opened him up in the endgame. I know the defense drops were really, really unfortunate, but I think if he... position himself a little bit better with some of his other mons, he might not have been as weak to the Scarf Flygon endgame. Like one was letting Scizor take that knock plus Scald and get burned.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Left him like super, super wide open to not only Scarf Flygon, but just Serena to win. Even though it was a fatter set, like it wasn't as easy for him to deal with without that Scizor, in my personal opinion. Another thing that obviously didn't matter that happened with the Serena was the Sucker. Again, the play didn't matter, but just something I wanted to mention was Sucker punching the Serena. Yeah, that was a little rough. And then there was one instance earlier in the game where there was I think it was Scarf Flygon was in on Gorg, and I don't know if the Flygon had locked into a move yet, but Gorg was a little bit lower at that point. And I think he would have gotten more mileage out of it if he would have synthed that turn and been able to play a little bit more safe around the Scarf Flygon in the end game. If he would have synthed opposed to, I believe he threw off a Toxic, either a Toxic or a Poltergeist. Where keeping Gourgeist healthy at that point in the game was very, very important in my personal opinion. But yeah, again, I don't think Chimp necessarily played super bad. I just think that one Sigil's play also really put him on the back foot. And again, I understand like you said, I really do understand the double, the thought there, and he was falling a little bit behind on the back foot at that point in the game. But it was more so ideas. If I get this play wrong, do I lose the game? And the answer was kind of yes. And once Sigilif was down, the game was kind of over at that point. So I don't think he necessarily played super awful. Like he played really well around the Vikavolt set. That was actually really, really scary in the early game if he didn't, get the Toxic on that and, pivot around it correctly. He pivoted really well around Cinderace, despite him having like Appleton plus Killfish. I think Cinderace was really, really scary versus him. So he pivoted around that pretty well. And he set up a pretty decent endgame for the Scarf Sigilif. It just, the late game positioning really put him in a really bad spot. And that's why he lost another 1-0 game, unfortunately. And made me have to, drop him a good considerable amount. I mean, I had him a lot higher in week 1 because I don't think he played super awful there, but he dropped all the way to 12 for me.
Yeah, I kept him at 8. I had him at 8 as week 1. I think he played better than a lot of coaches that won it. So
that's definitely fair. I do agree there. I do for sure agree.
It's kind of tough for me to drop him that much. Getting the burn, like if he didn't get burned by the Tentacruel, like he was going for choice. He got knocked off the choice band, but he was going for Psycho Cut, and that basically killed the Tentacruel. So that would have been one less switch in for Calum in the game to utilize. So if he didn't get the burn, he was in great position.
Oh yeah, for sure. But we run Scald for a reason, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, we find that out later on.
In
the future game we talk about.
Oh yeah, but
yeah, let's get to the next game, which we're gonna talk about Feint Attacks versus Seabed.
Yeah, so this game, Feint Attack ended up winning 1-0, and this was a very interesting game because I was watching this game and I kind of was spoiled a little bit on the result beforehand. I knew that Feint won, but I was watching the game. I was like, how the hell does he win this game? CFAD was in a really good position in the early game. Like a very, very good position in the game. But he got into a position whereas later in the game, I'll just kind of jump right to it because I know you're going to talk a lot about CFAD, so I'll talk about the point in which Feint won. And he saw his opportunity and he ran with it. And CFAD kind of gave him the opportunity to do so, where the Gudra just dropped a Draco, so it was a -2 special attack, and he got a free switch into the Pangoro. And instead of, getting chip on the AV, Pangoro with the Gudra, which would have put it in range of, I think, anything on his team based on the damage that he did afterwards, he was in a really, really good spot. And I think he was more so seeing Pangoro like this is a mon that's banded, or it's Life Orb 4 attacks, or something like that. I don't think he necessarily really thought of the possibility of it being SD, and he went hard out, and Feint Attacks SD'd. He clicked Swords Dance, and then he just bullet punched through the rest of the team. Drain Punch and Bullet Punch. He went he went hard Scarm, which was definitely a fair play because in his head he's probably not thinking about SC. In all honesty, I think that's the only reason he makes that play, because if not, he would have looked at his team and realized, dang, I lose to +2 Pangoro right now, unfortunately. I think he was also calcing not for Iron Fist too, which was definitely unfortunate as well, because he thought he lived a few hits that he did not live. And the rocks ended up coming up super clutch, so I think that was a really good play by Feint, realizing that in order to win this game, he's going to need to get that residual chip for Pangoro to win, because he was so far on the back foot at that point in the game. Due to, you know, some unfortunate circumstances, like Seaback getting like a double protect on a misclick, and, you know, a bunch of things like that as he protected it in the Dragon Dance Kirim's face, which was definitely crazy. But yeah, getting up the rocks opposed to just clicking the attacking button, what's in front of you, with Lycanroc, and kind of realizing it was definitely a good play, and he saw his opportunity that Seabad really gave him. He clicked Swords Dance, and he bullet punched through the entire team. He Drain Punched up on the Scarm, and if he would have just gotten the chip off with the Goodra, I believe, if he would have dropped another Draco or Power Whip or something like that, I believe it was 100% probably in range of a Brave Bird. Like 100% in range of a Brave Bird. So, definitely really unfortunate. He was definitely the beneficiary, a lot like Fruit Berries, of his opponent not really playing the best in the end game as they could, but he saw his opportunity and he ran with it. Can't fault someone for that. I don't think he necessarily played super awful. It's just he was kind of given the game there at the end, and that was definitely really cool. Oh, and I like the Durant break. I thought that was really cool. Home Falls Thunder thing. That was a really cool break. I thought that was a really, really good breaker in that game. He made a little bit of an aggressive play on the Goodra, trying to get it in on the Goodra, which is definitely a little sus, but Seabag caught him. Which, when he said, I'm going to click, when I'm going to go Flamethrower on the Durant, I'm like, no way, he goes Durant here. You can't risk that. That thing massacres you. And he went hard into it, and I was like, oh, no, don't do that. Please, no. But, yeah, he positioned him well for the end game. He positioned himself well for the end game. He didn't lose sight of his way to win, despite, you know, being very, very far in the back foot, and I think that's really commendable in itself. You know, a lot of times when we fall really far back behind it in games, we don't really think like, oh no, I can win this. It's more so like, oh crap, I think I lose right now, kind of deal. But he saw his end game and he went with it.
All right, I basically disagree with everything you just said.
What?
Yeah, did you watch Feint Attack side?
I watched Seapad side. I did not watch Feint side, no.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you get more context if you watch Feint's side. He did not put himself in a position to win. He got lucky. He had no idea that he put himself in a position to win that game. Yeah, he just had no, like, recognition about how to, like, set it up. And, like, I've never seen a game where, like, someone stumbled into a victory. It looked like he made all the right plays to end up winning that game, but he wasn't actually self-aware that he was actually making the right plays.
Oh,
so,
no.
Like, I can't give him credit for making the right plays when he didn't recognize that he was making the right plays. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
it was just super weird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, it was definitely strange. And I think Chase played this game better overall.
Oh, yeah.
And there are a couple crits that Chase got that, to be fair, that Feint, like, was really unfortunate. Like, Chase critted. So, Feint brought in the Hatterene on the Goodra as I went for Flamethrower and got a crit. And the Flamethrower crit from Chase on the AV Hatterene made it so where the Goodra could win one-on-one with Sludge Wave, where if he didn't get the crit with the Flamethrower, then Feint could have 1v1 with his Hatterene. So I don't fault Feint for like trying to make a switch at some point during that exchange to get into Durant, just because he was on the back foot and was probably going to lose to Hatterene. Now I don't know if the Hatterene or the Durant was more important at that point in the game. I think the speed of the Durant would have been more beneficial than the bulk of the Hatterene. But it was definitely unfortunate that Chase got the Flamethrower crit on the Hatterene. Chase also got a crit with his Kyurem on the Aromatisse, and Feint played that exchange. Oh no, Chase had the Aromatisse, and got the crit with the Moonblast, but I don't think that made a difference.
I think it 2-KO'd regardless.
Yeah, Feint didn't play that well at all. And granted, Chase made a misclick with the Whimsicott on the double protect and got rewarded. I was like, why? Because I saw Feint's side first. I was like, why would Chase risk going for the protect one at the beginning? Because like if Feint could have easily gone for a second Dragon Dance.
Especially if he was bulkier too. Especially if he's like a really bulky Kyurem set. Robotees ain't that strong, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it was gonna do like what 60-ish percent, 70% at most. He could have easily gotten 2 Dragon Dances up, and if he didn't get like 2 Icicle Spear hits, he probably just won the game with Kyurem at that point. So it was really risky that Chase went for the first Protect in the first place. You just try to get the chip damage as like quickly as possible, and then hopefully revenge kill later on. But he ended up getting the second Protect too. Like if that Protect failed, and Chase would have been in a really bad position because the Kyurem was gonna kill the Aromatisse without taking any damage. So that would have been extremely unless you got like two hits. So that would have been really unfortunate for Chase there. So a lot of luck went into it. It benefited Chase at that point outside of Feint. But yeah, no, Feint set up Brox, which I thought like with his thought process was kind of weird versus just getting chip damage with the close combat. But it ended up working out. Honestly, I don't really fault Chase with the whole end game. So the Goodra was down -2 special attack on the Lycanroc, and then he switched out to Goodra. Oh no, not on the Pangoro. As a poor Gyarados was set up to a +2 at the Swords Dance. I don't know if going for chip damage at that point would have been the play, just because Pangoro, first of all, could have been faster than the Goodra. The Pangoro was slow. It's kind of hard to assume that Pangoro is going to be slow, bulky Swords Dance against this team. I guess it kind of makes sense, but it just seemed like not that intuitive. You would expect maybe the Pangoro to add speed to Skarmory if it's like Swords Dance and close combat to kill the Skarmory. But I guess slow Swords Dance with Drain Punch to like outslow the Skarmory that's like say going for a Roost might be a cool tech to get him off guard, and then you're taking super effective damage instead of neutral damage on the Skarmory. So maybe that was a thought process with the Pangoro set. But yeah, like if Chase stayed in with the Goodra, I felt like he'd have just recovered off all the HP anyway by going for the for a Drain Punch, and Gooey wouldn't have made a difference there. So I don't really fault him that much. He brought in the Skarmory afterwards, and like there was a chance where you could have Brave Birded or gone for the Body Slam. And honestly, Chase was in a pretty tough predicament, like going for the Brave Bird or going for the Body Press. Like Body Press, like Seabad was saying at the end that going for Body Press would have been better. Honestly, I think it was pretty tough to assume that, because I think Body Press might have been better if he was faster and expected a Pangoro to have speed. Then Body Press I think would have been the better play. I think Brave Bird was still a fine play, honestly. Yeah, I think Feint just got lucky and he got himself in a good position. Yeah, it was just super strange. One thing that Chase should have done, well, first he accidentally misplayed the track. He let the track die to a Bullet Punch, which he didn't know that the Pangoro had Bullet Punch at that point. So that's fine at the Terrakion instead. Maybe you could have sacked something else, like bring in the Terrakion, switch it out to see if there was a Bullet Punch chance or not. But yeah, it was 100% going to kill with Bullet Punch because it was Iron Fist. Iron Fist, non-Iron Fist wouldn't have killed the Terrakion from that range. So I could understand why Seabad made that play. But he brought in the Whimsicott to like go for a Defog, and that was a bad play. I think at that point, you go into the Gengar as the Pangoro goes for the Bullet Punch, and you hope you get a Curse Body. Because I think that was your best chance to win the game. He ended up not getting it when he brought in the Gengar, but that was the second last mon that he brought in. So I think he should have brought the Gengar out earlier and hoped to get a little bit of luck on that part. But honestly, I think Chase played better that game, and Feint just got in a fortunate position to win. That's why I kept Feint at 11 from being 11 last week. I don't think he really deserved that game and recognized he was going to win that game, but I can't really drop him for winning the game as well. But Seabad, I had dropped to 6, and I had him at 2 before. So I guess that makes sense if you go 0-2. Even if I still really like Seabad's team, I think he has potential to still do really well in this league.
And 2 1-0 losses too. I mean, yeah, exactly. No. He beat Uzi.
Oh no, he won.
Yeah, he beat Uzi.
He won,
so he's 1-1. So like, it's not the most ideal
game.
spot. Yeah.
He won, but probably didn't deserve to win that game.
There's been a lot of those this season.
But he probably deserved to win this game.
There's been a lot of those this season.
For sure, yeah.
But,
yeah, man. Yeah, let's get to the next game on our list, which is
Moet versus
Moet.
Viz.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say for Visualize side. I think he won this game in prep, which I think a couple coaches, like when we talk about MV later, he also won his game in prep, and like you just followed a game plan with your prep, and then you win the game. And it's harder to like commend some of these coaches if you don't have a team builder. It's hard for me to say, oh, it was like I can't praise you for your team prep if you don't like have a team builder. I can figure out what the team is obviously based on what was brought in the game, but not a whole lot for me to say on Visually side. It was cool to see the 4 attacks Jirachi like with Ogalbina go in this game. Aura Sphere, and then Energy Ball to kill the Seismitoad, then Ancient Power to kill the Volcarona, which was Sunny Day, right? Which seems strange.
Interesting. I'll talk about that.
But whatever. It was weird that Visualize didn't leave the Jirachi as sleep fodder for the Venusaur. He just let it die, and then he brought in the Scrafty and like was chanting with like sleep rolls with that set. And he definitely could have lost out on that exchange if like he was sleep powdered, stayed asleep, and then like Moet goes for a Solar Beam or Giga Drain, and then doesn't go for another attack, and then wakes up. Like if that like exchange happened a couple times, and Moet like continuously hit sleep powders, and Visualize was gonna lose. Granted, he probably didn't expect Moet to be growth as well, so maybe he didn't think it was that risky. So just a little bit weird. He just didn't leave the Jirachi as sleep fodder. I think Visualize would have had a lot easier of a win if he did that. He kind of played it weird as well, going for the Psych Up on the Venusaur, which was like a +1 or +2 special attack. Out of the Sud, it didn't make sense to just not kill it, and then you lose your Focus Sash, and then you get a revenge killed by the Galvantula. So a little bit of weird plays there. He made it up by like playing really well against the Scream Duraludon to try to set up a Gyarados sweep, because he just stayed in with a Scrafty and just bulked up and just made all the screens go out, and then bulky Scrafty won the game. So visually played really well, won in prep. Didn't really make that risky plays necessarily. I think he played really well. Maybe didn't give him enough credit when he won week 1, but he's won against, I feel like, 2 really good opponents in Chimp and Moet. I raised him significantly from 14th from week 1 up to rank 5 this week. So really impressed with Visually's play, and I thought it was just a one-off fluke the first game, but hopefully he can keep this up. I'm really impressed with how he's been playing with this team.
Oh yeah, for sure. And as for Moet, so you kind of talked about the prep, and again, that's a really big thing with me. And something I've noticed with Moet when I've watched him in these few weeks of WBE, and then when he played in the APA, his builds have very hyper-specific game plans, and I think that's fine. I think you should obviously build around a win con and winning with that. But his teams seem a little bit gimmick. He has to have the gimmick work, or the team's gonna bust. And I feel like this was kind of a week where he had some cool ideas. Like the Venu under Sun Venusaur was very good in this matchup, though I think it should have been Earth Power over Weather Ball, personally. I think Earth Power would have been great. Maybe you could even go Weather Ball, Earth Power. Like, you don't necessarily need growth or the sleep powder. You can, forego one, but I think, sleep powder plus growth is definitely fine. I think Earth Power was a lot better because not only can you reliably hit the Jirachi, you can hit the Dragalge, and something I noticed too a lot about Moet's team is he didn't really break Dragalge very well. It didn't really come into play in the game, but especially letting the Seismitoad go down very early, he did not have great ways of breaking through that lawn, which could have been pretty problematic for him in my personal opinion. And like I said, the Venusaur was a really cool idea, but his Sunsetter in that matchup in this specific instance was Volcarona, and that really, really interested me, because I looked at the team, I looked at Viz's team, and I said, how does he not lose to Quiverdance Volk in the end game?
Exactly.
Like, Quiverdance Volk went crazy. I do think that was, I don't think you should click Psych Up in that instance, but the Psych Up was obviously definitely for Volcarona, and I think that was really cool. Being sashed and then psyching up, and then, blowing through the rest of the team with like a boosted Alakazam. That would have been super cool. He definitely shouldn't have clicked it on the Venu, but it was a cool prep idea. But, I mean, you break the Zam Sash, and you get a little bit of chip on Prim, and I think Volcarona just won.
Yeah, exactly.
With like Quiver Stabs, maybe Giga Drain, and the game was not maybe Giga Drain, you need it for Prim, but the game was pretty much over. So I thought that was definitely a little interesting. Venu itself could have even set Sun for itself because while Sleep Powder was nice, while Growth was nice, you could even tech on that as your 4th move or something like that. So that was definitely interesting. Not scouting for the energy ball or kind of clicking a little too fast and realizing, oh, does Jirachi get a grass move against your size token early game was definitely really unfortunate because, like I said, I think that was a very important member, especially in checking the Dragology, because I thought that could have been really, really obnoxious for him in the end game. Again, he didn't play super awful. He hit a lot of Sleep Powders. I think he missed like 1 or 2 out of like 15 clicked, which was pretty insane. But he was just kind of out-positioned in the endgame with that Shrafty. I thought that was a really, really good set by Viz. And he was able to position it correctly for the endgame to where he didn't lose to the Gyarados. Maybe if the Gyarados had Waterfall, it could have been a little bit different if he got lucky with some flinches. But
sure,
you can't fault Viz at all. He definitely played that endgame really well. And I think Moet, his team just wasn't the most optimal in this week. I thought that Venu could have been a little bit better with Earth Power than Weather Ball. And I think that Volk definitely could have been a really nasty Quiver Dance win con in this game because he was super, super weak to the Volk.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up
right,
next?
Yeah. What do you have?
Uzi?
I have Moet at 10 this week instead of he dropped 1 slot for me, so don't really fault Moet too much this game.
Where do I have him this week? I think I dropped him a considerable amount. I think I might have him higher. I think I dropped him pretty far. Hold on, let me find it. Oh my.
Oh, you dropped from 7 to 8.
7 to 8? Oh, then I didn't drop him. Dang, I was just on that slide and I didn't see it. So yeah, not too. Again, he didn't play super awful. I just think, he didn't position himself super well. I know I raised initially to 5, much like yours. So I think he definitely built really well this game. I really liked his build. Again, I think the Psych Up Alakazam ring was really, really cool for the Volt because that would have been super nasty. And maybe Mo went like just third eye open and was like, nah, he's bringing Psych Up Alakazam. I can't do that. And that's why he brought the Sunny Day Volt. Because I'll be real, that definitely would have caught me off guard if I was a Quiver Dance Volk. I'd have just been like, I just gotta break the sash from the Hammer and make sure I'm out of range of a Psy Shock and I'm good. Yeah, that was definitely really cool.
That's like standard to bring. You gotta get better.
That's why I'm doing power rankings and I'm not actually playing in them.
There you go.
But
let's get to game
Uzi
6,
versus Otto.
Uzi Otto.
This is a good game.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about Uzi versus Otto. Uzi was able to pick up this game 1-0. I thought on matchup, Uzi definitely recognized how good Rotom was, and he positioned it really, really well, and he was able to get in a couple of really aggressive doubles, and I thought that was really, really smart. I think Otto's counterplay to Rotom in that game was like AV Mudsdale, which definitely isn't the best, unfortunately. I think he was, really, really solid that. I thought he definitely played really, really good in getting that aggressively in. One thing I didn't like, that he did was sacking the Rotom to the Arcanine. I know I watched his team builder and he said I don't expect a fast Arcanine this week. That's completely fair, though with how good Rotom was and how it could still potentially get a Pain Split up later. I believe it was Pain Split.
Yeah.
I think
no, it was Volt Switch.
Oh, it was Volt Switch? Oh, I thought in his team builder he said he had his Pain Split. Or did he switch it from Pain Split to Volt Switch? Oh, damn.
I think he switched it.
Oh, damn. Either way, I think it still had a lot of utility and not scouting for that when you have sufficient checks to the Arcanine, in my opinion, was a little bit sus, in my opinion. That was definitely a little bit unfortunate. I don't know if the Scarf Hydro was the best bring versus this team, but it ended up coming really clutch in the end game because he was just able to eliminate a lot of Otto's, really good checks to the Scarf Hydra. I thought like Nasty Plot went crazy versus Otto's team. Like maybe like a Nasty Plot Roselli set for something like the Dazzling Gleam Starmie. With how slow Otto's team is, I think that set also could have just gone absolutely insane.
I think that's why he brought Scarf, to make sure he had something to like consistently kill the Starmie.
That's definitely fair too. But I mean, again, if you're Roselli, if you're bulky enough, you're definitely not dropping to an Ice Beam, and you can take the deep lane pretty easily as well if you're Roselli. So I think maybe that could have been a little bit more optimized in itself. But I think that he ended up positioning himself pretty well for the end game. The flinch that he got on Otto was definitely really unfortunate. On the what did he get the flinch on? Was it? Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting?
Oh, and the wheezing.
The wheezing. Yeah, that was definitely really unfortunate. I think that did end up, really winning the game. But you can't fault too much for that. Is
he also got paired early on with his Tangrowth, like when he switched into Weezing. So the Tangrowth would have done enough chip damage to where the Passimian would have killed there. So like he also got luckier, like
early on,
yeah, but he didn't get extra chip damage on it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. So that shows that there was a bunch on both sides, that really ended up setting that up. But I think that Uzi was able to play aggressive enough and put on a lot of pressure without Rotom in the early game. Really just set up for an end game where he could win.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I was helping Uzi out a little bit this week, so I'm happy that he's able to figure out a good end game position to get this win. Auto, like, I really thought that Corrosive Gas Weezing was a lot better this game, or Neutralizing Gas was better than Levitate, because I don't think Stunfisk was that big of an issue for this team. Yeah, especially because you have AV Mudsdale. Like, what does Stunfisk do to AV Mudsdale? Now, granted, you probably want the Mudsdale to maybe take on like Nasty Plot Hydreigon or something like that, but like preventing the Tangrowth from getting Regenerator if you bring in a Weezing every time, that would have been super clutch for the Starmie, the Analytic Starmie, to just get killed, because that Starmie went in on his team, minus the Tangrowth and minus the Scarf Hydreigon. But if he was able to prevent the Tangrowth from getting Regenerator, and that Starmie was able to kill to a KO the Tangrowth with Ice Beam, then Starmie was looking like really, really good, or even chipping the team down enough to where Colberberry Aegislash could have won the game there. So yeah, I think the Neutralizing Gas was better on the Weezing, but Auto played, I think, pretty well, I guess you could call it. He played super safe, and Uzi was like making, I guess, fairly aggressive plays, and Auto didn't, which that's not necessarily a good or bad thing. Like, he was just doing what he was planning to do during his, I'm sure during like his team build, and figuring out what mods pivot into others, but eventually, it was the Rotom got a Nasty Plot up on the Mudsdale, or before the Mudsdale came in. Yeah, I think he Uzi set up a Nasty Plot on the Mandibuzz and switched out to Mudsdale. So it was a +2 Rotom to the Mudsdale and did like 80% with the overheat on the Mudsdale, and Mudsdale did like half, a little bit more than half with Rock Slide. At that point in the game, I think Auto has to make the aggressive play and go into Arcanine, predicting him to go for another overheat and kill the Mudsdale, because if he goes for a Nasty Plot, that doesn't make sense, because Mudsdale would just kill with Rock Slide. It doesn't make sense for Uzi to go for like a Volt Switch or a Thunderbolt on the Mudsdale, because he would die to Rock Slide. Like, there is no world where Uzi, I guess, maybe switches out or just goes for the overheat and kills the Mudsdale. So if you go into Arcanine that has Flash Fire, gets the Flash Fire boost first of all, but then has something faster than the Rotom Heat and can kill a close combat, like, that would have just opened up this game so much. But because the Mudsdale died and the Rotom Heat was still fairly healthy, it was just free Volt Switches, free Thunderbolts against Auto's teams. They really had nothing to take an electric hit at that point. Like, Arcanine's not going to take hits because it was faster. Mandibuzz isn't taking electric hits. Weezing isn't taking electric hits. Aegislash obviously is not going to switch in on a Rotom, so I feel like just making that aggressive play would have gave Auto basically a 100% chance, or close to 100% chance to win that game. It didn't have to rely on getting flinched by the Passimian, losing the Weezing, and that probably cost him the game, because he basically had to sack his Arcanine as well to get chip damage on the Passimian, which was a good bring by Uzi, the bulky Passimian set. So Auto really didn't play that bad. Like, he played pretty safe, but I think he could have been a little bit more aggressive on the Rotom, and I think he wins that game pretty convincingly. So I think Auto played better than a lot of coaches that lost, and a couple of coaches that won this week too. I think this is one of the best games of the week.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was definitely super, super solid, and it came down, like, right, obviously said right until the end. With that flinch, like, unfortunately, yeah.
One or two plays, yeah, very close game.
Oh, for sure.
And I think we both have these coaches
pretty high
in the power rankings.
Yeah, I know. We didn't really drop Auto too much. He's in the top 4 for both of us. I have him at 3, and you have him at 4. And
exactly,
then Uzi definitely jumped up a little bit for both have him at 7. He jumped up from being able to bounce back after a pretty tough loss to Chase in week 1. 2 really close games for him though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good for Uzi. But yeah, let's get on to a week 7 game, which was MV against Magnitude. So this was very similar to me to a visualized game where MV's like prep and knowing how to execute the prep just won the game. Probably also a combination with Steve playing pretty horrifically, I would say. But like turn 1 with the Cincino in on the Bronzong, like MV's like, okay, I'll just body press and kill you or do 90% damage, and he stayed in going for a knockoff, which wouldn't have done much even if there wasn't a Colbert Berry. Like, I don't think that exchange made a whole lot of sense there versus like you turning out with Magnitude. But yeah, MV will take the damage, sure, if it's free. And then MV's like, well, I'll go for the Earthquake, it'll kill the Cincino, and if the Chandelure is brought for some unknown reason, I'll take it. And he switches into the Chandelure and does like 80% with the Earthquake. So like, he didn't really do anything with the Bronzong. He just stayed in and clicked attacks, and I guess he didn't even really predict like Earthquake's gonna kill a Cincino at 10%, and like basically killed 2 Mons in the first 2 turns. So that really put Magnitude in a pretty hard position to win, and just made MV like not have to predict whatsoever. Like, there was a point where Togekiss was in and Magnitude brought in Barraskewda, and Togekiss clicked Air Slash and did like 75%. That's like basically another dead mon for just going for an attack and not really predicting at all. Yeah, there's really not much to say about MV's gameplay, but his build was really good. The Iron Defense, Bronzong, very defensive team, Boots, Togekiss to take on the Komao, AV Lantern worked out pretty well, AV Mambo was good, the Senna Scorch was a pretty decent pivot and made sure that Comfy wasn't going to win, and Scarf Dragapult the best set, so he won the game in prep there, and I think it makes sense that I keep him at number 1 in the power rankings, and you have him at 2.
Yeah.
So we're both fairly high on MV.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on pretty much everything I wanted to say. Envy, It was another matchup where Envy, especially because of how Steve played in the early game, I think Chandelure was by far the biggest threat to Envy's team. It was the piece that Steve needed to use to break through that really strong defensive core versus him, because he really didn't have much to break through the fatter build that Envy brought, and letting it take that early hit so easy, and then just eventually just sacking it off super early on in the game was super tough in my opinion. Like, he had a one-time Shadow Ball pivot because next time Lantern comes in, it Shadow Balls plus E-Ball, and I think he died. So, that's definitely really unfortunate in my opinion. He definitely played a little bit sus around that, a little bit sus around the Bronzong in the early game, like you said. But it's kind of just another instance of MV having a really solid defensive backbone and being able to play incredibly safe and wait for his opponent to mess up. And it just happened a lot earlier on this week, in my opinion. The Senna Scorch was definitely a really cool bring. I like the AV Mammo, like you said. And, other than that, he just played very straightforward. It's hard to say, like, what went wrong, what went right. It was legit just, he kind of was out-prepped and outplayed, in both instances. Nobody made any flashy plays. It just, Steve made more mistakes than Envy did. Yeah. So he lost the game pretty convincingly, unfortunately.
Exactly. Just make sure you check out Steve's side for that battle. Pretty entertaining. But yeah, now I dropped Magnitude really far. I usually don't like this drastic changes, but both for Magnitude and we're gonna talk about Nexus in a minute. I dropped Magnitude from 5 all the way to 13 this week. It's kind of tough, and I don't know if he deserves to be this far down, especially because he's played Auto, which we had at top 4. I had him top 4 this whole season, and then he played MV, which I had at 1 or 2 this whole season. Mm-hmm. And next week he plays Seabed, which we had as like our number 1 team, and the week after that he plays Pokemon, which we've also had in our top 2. So Steve has had a ridiculously rough schedule.
But he could definitely do it with this team, though. I know he could definitely, and he gets to play against a team with no Dark with a Reuniverse next week, so that'll be fun.
Oh yeah, that seems like a pretty easy win, but we'll see.
Oh yeah,
no guarantees.
But yeah, I have MV at 2, and then I have Steve. I was a little bit nicer. I put him at 9. But let's go ahead and jump on into our final game of the day already. Oh Lord, we went so much faster than last time. Okay, this is going to be Pokemon versus Nexus. This is the first game of the week I watched, and this game was kind of a wash. I'll just jump right into it. Pokemon ended up winning 5-0. And there was one point, literally just, I think it was turn 1 or turn 2, that kind of ended this game for me. The game was pretty much over, in my opinion, once this happened. Slowbro was in on, I believe it was Keldeo. It was a Slowbro lead and a Keldeo lead, and the Keldeo flip turned out. And in my head, I'm thinking, he's not going to go hard Rillaboom. And even Pokemon kind of realized, he was like, well, the Keldeo's not going to stay in, but I'm going to Scald if for some reason he wants to go Rillaboom and I can nap burn on it. He went hard Rillaboom, which, by the way, was really, really strong offensively versus Pokegame's team. Like, really.
Yeah, what's a switch in?
He had nothing for it, and it was so important for the sand, too. Yeah, it was so good in that game. He clicked, he went into the Rillaboom, and he immediately got burned, and from there, he had no way of killing Slowbro, and that was pretty much the game. Slowbro just sat in front of the entire team. You're not OHKOing it with a knockoff from the Weavile, and Body Press is obviously going to blow that backwards. It was legit just a slack off 3 attack set, and it went pretty crazy in that game. There just wasn't anything to break it, and I think risking that burn on the Rillaboom wasn't the play. Granted, he didn't have great pivots into the Slowbro. Nothing really wanted to take a hit from it. Slowbro's decently strong on its own too, but I think maybe a Drifblim play or something like that to pivot around it, maybe force it out with a Shadow Ball, something like that, might have been a little bit nicer, because I thought Rillaboom was so essential to that endgame. Like you said, Rose Raid isn't really a switch in, it's a Rose Raid. Definitely more Spadef bulky, and then there was a Noivern, but I think that he could have definitely forced a lot of chip on the Noivern, and potentially even won with Rillaboom in the endgame, just clicking Grassy Glide. So that was definitely really, really unfortunate for Moet, and obviously it's, I mean not Moet, Nexus, and it's really unfortunate getting burned. Like, it's a 30% chance, but it sucks. But I don't think you can take that risk when you look at the team matchup. You're saying, I have one Pokemon that can hit, Slowbro for a decent amount of damage, and I need a good 30% chip off on it to even kill it with that Weavile knockoff. So I think if he still had the Rillaboom plus Weavile could have really done well versus the New York Drapies.
Yeah, like, Weavile looked good too.
Yeah, Weavile looked really, really solid, and just that Volt-turn, momentum tandem of Keldeo plus Rillaboom forcing in the, the Noivern a lot, letting him get in the Weavile for free, and just throwing off big hits was huge, because he just didn't have a switch into Ice Move plus knockoff at all. So that was kind of just the game for me. There wasn't really much Nexus could do once the Rillaboom got burned, and Bogan was able to play incredibly safe and just pick up a very, very, very convincing 5-0 win. He built well. I thought the SD drill obviously went really, really well in that game, provided that it wasn't chipped down for the Rillaboom if it wasn't burned. It did get burned, and things like that. Noivern was very important when he realized that, and I think he played well with that thing and pivoting around and keeping it healthy and things like that. But it just kind of shows one turn can really just change the tide and momentum of a game like crazy.
Oh, definitely. And, I think that, again, all comes to, your prep in your team. If you look at Nexus team, it was Life Orb, Weavile. That doesn't switch into Slowbro. Doesn't want to take a Scald. Miracle Seed Rillaboom doesn't want to take a Scald. Akka Steelix doesn't want to take a Scald. Keldeo, it can take a Scald, but what's it going to do? Unless, especially if it's not Calm Mind, it does absolutely nothing. And, Calm Mind's not going to even really do a lot if it lets you get to, +4, +5.
Yeah, then you just pivot out and get your regen back.
Exactly, yeah. Drifblim with no attacks, that's not going to do anything. And then Hitmonlee, that's not going to switch into Scald either. So, he lost because his team prep wasn't great. He has, a Dredagon, which I guess can, kind of, if it's special defensive, it can take on Slowbro fine.
Heliolisk.
It could be at least a neutral matchup. Gardevoir.
Heliolisk was the big one.
Tracing. Helios was the big one, yeah. Takes on the Slowbro really well. But, all three of those mons, or even, a Lumberry Rillaboom, could have, all been answers to the Slowbro. But, yeah, not having an answer for, one of your opponent's, 2 or 3 best mons doesn't, that's not gonna work. And yeah, it's unfortunate that he got the burn, but honestly, he probably was gonna get it eventually, because you really didn't have any switch-ins to a Slowbro Scald anyway. And yeah, it just tilted Nexus, which is understandable, but it's definitely something that could have happened in that game. And he also didn't, he still could have done really well damage with the Weavile, and just didn't get a great opportunity to bring it in. I think the he could have brought it in like he had a flip turn Keldeo on the Noivern. I guess AIM didn't think the Keldeo was going to be scarfed, but it was. And Nexus could have killed an Icy Wind. But he could have flip turned into from Keldeo into Steelix, which died at Noivern, and then brought in the Weavile after that. And he brought something else in, I don't remember. But he never got a chance to win that game either. Like, he just thought he lost turn 1, and like that's tough to have that mentality of like not thinking you can win a game when he definitely could have won the game with Weavile, but he just thought he had no chance because he lost the Rillaboom on turn 1. So just have more confidence and like just try to figure out an alternative win condition. It wasn't over that game for sure, even if AIM got a little bit lucky there turn 1.
Yeah, you got to realize you got to prep for not only the big offensive threats, you got to prep for the defensive win cons too. And
exactly.
Slowbro definitely, like you said, wasn't prepped for the best in that game. But yeah.
Yeah, and I dropped Nexus pretty low. That game, he's all the way down to 14. He was already like somewhat low for you. So
yeah, no, I definitely dropped him pretty considerably myself. That was a pretty tough game to watch, unfortunately. But hopefully he can bounce back again. I really like his team. I think his build's really solid. So I think if he just prepares a little bit better, he could be in a much better spot.
He played better with the timer. Played better with the timer, which was nice. Maybe a little too quick at times. Like, he didn't have to. He was like super panicked.
Happy medium.
It was like super relaxed turn 1, like week 1, to like being super panicked about the timer, and he had like 7 minutes left at the end of the game or something.
Gotta find that happy medium.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I dropped him low, and then I have AIM at 1. But
yeah, there you go. But I think that's it for week 2 power rankings. Maybe this was a little bit quicker. Probably not that much.
A little bit. I'm lucky. It's a little bit. We're getting better. We're getting there.
Right, good. Cool.
But yeah, let me know what you guys think of our rankings down in the comments and stuff like that. Obviously, this is completely subjective. Our word is not law, and I know a lot of other people are doing power rankings too, and I bet you money that theirs are going to be way different than ours. So let me know what you think and why, and I'm definitely open to have that discussion in the comments below. I love stuff like this. Definitely go check out Shuckle. Like I said, next week's power rankings will be up on his channel. I know he also does coach interviews and, draft league content of his own. Do you have anything else you want to say or plug or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. I'm also going to be on an interview tomorrow with Grandmaster D-Ray, so make sure you check out his channel too and see my interview there. I'll talk about like my draft league experience.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll link D-Ray in the description below too. That is my boy. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, be sure to drop a sub. It's free. It helps me out and lets me know you're enjoying what I'm doing. And drop a like if you haven't done so already. And I will see you guys in the next one. Later.